All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If this is your first time here, we are primarily an interview and a commentary podcast. You can find the Billy D's podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, and you can find me on Twitter at Billy D's. Today, on the studio line with me, I have Laurisha Fant. Laurisha, how are you doing today? Welcome to the program. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here. I am an entrepreneur and I am also a poet and an artist. We met in a space, right? So,
That is correct.
yeah, it was fantastic getting to meet you there and also getting to share some poetry with you as well. So, I'm excited.
Awesome. I probably should have asked you this before the show. Do you have some poetry you can share with us a little later, or
I
yes?
do.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. We'll save that for the audience. Yes, let me explain what a space is for those of you who may not know. Twitter has this new type of media, I guess you could say, that is audio only, and it's a space. It's very much like a room or anything else that you want to call it. You can have a host, a couple of guest speakers, and of course, you can have an audience that, as far as I know, is unlimited in terms of how many people can come in and listen. Only so many people can speak. And these have become very popular with the creative community. It has become very popular with those that do motivation and all these other things. And in one of those creative spaces is where I met Laurisha. One of the things that really stood out to me is you are so multifaceted. You know, there's the people that do the business stuff, you know, the marketing and what's my ROI and all that other kind of BS, you know. And then you get the kind of people that are creatives, and sometimes, you know, they're so creative, they don't have a practical sense of things. And I understand that. But then there's these people that just have the right combination of marketing skills, business skills, creativity. And you're not a left brain or a right brain person, are you? You're like all of it.
Yes. And I thank you so much for the compliment first. Second, I really enjoy being all of it. I have a background in teaching business, and then I recently stepped into doing artistry and poetry and things. I have some background of it from a child and doing it, but a lot of people doing poetry, but a lot of people, it's like, for instance, people with artistry and things, they don't necessarily push it as, hey, this is an option. This is
Yeah.
what you should do with your life. It was like, you want to be a teacher, doctor, lawyer?
Yeah,
These are
sure.
the few things that they, gave. And so I didn't think that it was an avenue, honestly.
Hmm.
But when I kind of started doing other forms of expression, even painting, and not painting canvases, painting walls in an apartment, because I had a painting business pre-pandemic. But when all of that kind of slowed down, my mind was still going. I wanted to put my mind in other things, and a lot of the businesses had closed, a lot of things had closed. So, as an entrepreneur, it's like you're always reaching out, wanting to do something amazing, but also something helpful as
Hmm.
well, right? So,
Sure.
that's really where the poetry came in. Not for myself, but I saw an avenue for people to express themselves.
Hmm.
So many Twitter spaces, like you said, were like ROI this, deliver this speech to me very quickly.
Hmm.
Everything was very one sided. People were very stressed, and I hated seeing that.
Sure.
I wanted something to where people could honestly just breathe and express themselves without feeling like it was a circle where they had to tell all, like a psychiatry type thing, or someone was probing them. I didn't want anyone feeling that way. I
Yeah.
wanted people to just relax. And
Hmm.
that's really what drew me starting spaces, and now me going to other people's spaces and still continuing that same vibe. So, yeah.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about you now. What part of the world are you in right now?
I am in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yes, I'm from the Charlotte area, and I don't know, I really enjoy the East Coast. I like having all the seasons, so
Yeah, yeah. I'm in Ohio, and we get a kind of a bad rap now. Cleveland, because they're by the lake, there's this thing called lake effect, and they can get really just hammered with snow at certain times of the year. Now, we're far enough south that we really don't get that, and Ohio really isn't that bad for winter. I mean, it's not like Minnesota or one of those kind of places, Wisconsin, where they're just ice bowls, um, I can't handle that. So yeah, that's a great part of the world. I really like the Carolinas, and yeah, it's a fun place. Now, what was your interest growing up? What were you drawn to as kind of a young person when you were going through school and in high school? What did you think your ambitions were going to go toward?
Growing up, I always loved to teach, and I do have a teaching background as well and degree. I like to help people. That is
Hmm.
like my life's goal, help people with many things. So whether it's learning something or, excuse me, or accomplishing something, whether it's um, helping them to express themselves, is one of the reasons why I help people with consulting and things of the sort, because that has always been my vision. Now, growing up, I was like, I want to be a business person. I just knew I wanted to be in something in business, and I wanted to just expand and help as much as possible.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's another good facet that I've noticed. So many people kind of seem to think, well, I'm going to be in business, I'm going to make lots of money, or people go the route of, well, I want to help people, I want to be in that field, and it's kind of like, you know, uh, going doing work that you love to help people means that you're not going to make a lot of money. And actually, those two things aren't mutually exclusive, are they? You can do both.
well, exactly. It's just all about how you are utilizing your skills. And what I tell artists in spaces all the time, but also artists outside of there and owners, it's all about how serious you take yourself. If you aren't, for instance, confident in your pricing or in something that you're about to set up, you have to take a moment before you set it up, and you
Hmm.
have to get yourself confident. Because if you're not confident, why would I believe in, a painting, for instance, that's $5,000 if you don't believe in it? Why would I
Correct.
want to invest in it? That's like, if you're about to eat something amazing, or you come into a restaurant, you're about to order, and then you ask how something is, and they're like, it's all right. You're not really going to be confident in wanting to order that then. But if they believe in it, they're like, oh, they start telling you about the sauces and the details. Well, now it's, something special. Now it's something like, oh, I definitely want to try that, even if it might not have been my first preference.
Hmm.
And so, yeah.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned that you had a painting business, prior to the pandemic. Now, I'm guessing this was like painting houses, painting interiors. What exactly did you specialize in?
Yes, I specialize and still do, but in painting apartment buildings is the main thing, like commercial contracts.
Hmm.
That's another thing. It sounds weird to love that as a child, but that's another thing that I learned as a child that I actually learned to love, like the little things in a contract that make it special. So I started using those skills from childhood to form commercial contracts. I learned professional painting from my dad. And so
Mm.
then I just turned it into my own business, and I turned it into something that really worked for me. So sometimes I worked on homes too, but not homes that were occupied, because that can get a little long, having to move everyone's
Oh
furniture
yeah,
and things
yeah.
like that. But especially like investment homes, also have a real estate background too, but not to get too far into that. But I loved painting investment homes, just seeing that change,
Hmm.
seeing things be altered. It was just extravagant. Like, it was amazing. It was extravagant. It was something that I really like to see the change of.
Hmm.
It slowed down during the pandemic, mainly because stay-at-home orders, right?
Yeah.
That caused people to extend their leases, which meant that there were less places to paint, which also meant that places couldn't pay. Like, they were having trouble paying all the different painters and things like
Hmm.
that. It seems like, hey, they would have had more money. No, there was so much that was befuddled with all of this person's supposed to move out, but they didn't. So now I lost being able to increase the price of this. It was kind of a mess. So
Yeah.
it got me into artistry though. So I
Yeah.
cannot be mad at it.
You transitioned during the pandemic into, I'm guessing, doing art, poetry, and all these other things online. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, since you have a business background, we hear so much about the Great Resignation and how people simply don't want to work. I feel a big component of what happened is a lot of people realized they didn't necessarily have to work for someone else. Out of necessity, they started a business online, or they started subcontracting as themselves online, whether it be editing people's manuscripts, in my case editing video, all of these other things. They found ways that they could do things online for themselves. Is that a big part of why you think a lot of people didn't go back to the traditional type of jobs, especially in the service industry, after the pandemic?
I do. I think that a lot of folks, honestly, were very tired of not of working. I think that I actually discussed that with a colleague who thought, oh, people are just lazy. And I'm like, people are still working, even if you can't see them doing so.
Hmm.
It's just that people are tired of going to things that lack passion, I believe,
Absolutely.
and spending all of their time and effort and not really being appreciated. Um, nothing ever morphs or changes. You're essentially sort of making someone else's dream occur, but you don't really get a stake in that anymore. And a lot of folks are really tired of that. So yes, I found a lot of people did go to online businesses. Some people went to food delivery things because they got
Hmm.
to be in their car and drive. I think a lot of people discovered themselves.
Yes.
And that's something that happened to me. Like, I didn't even know that I could paint when I got into painting. And I didn't get into it for business. I got into it because I wanted to use my mind and my hands in a different way. Like
Hmm.
I said, same with the poetry. I wasn't thinking about business. What I went to first for that was consulting because I love talking to people about how they can further their business. So I did online consulting and I did it. I did that some back in 2016 when I
Hmm.
went into entrepreneurship, but I really like advanced in it then during the pandemic. And it was amazing. I didn't realize my own potential. And I think that's why so many people are not going back to where they were.
Yeah.
When you realize who you are, it's like, do I want to go back to where I was now that I know? It's kind of like
Yeah.
taking that matrix pill, so to speak. Now that I'm unplugged,
Hmm.
now that I know what's going on, going back here is not really an option. Going forward is. So I think that that's what's occurring.
So, how did the path to the art begin? Now, you said you didn't even realize that it was something that you had in you. What kind of pictures did you start to gravitate to first? Were they landscapes? Were they portraits? What kind of art did you kind of gravitate to?
Oh, the first picture that I did was actually of an apple. I just wanted to do something really simple and use oils because I have always loved going to art galleries and just getting lost in the paintings. It's one of the ways that I used to kind of unplug growing up, just going and just sitting there and just looking at just the depth of those paintings. I thought that they were so beautiful. And my goal, if I had like a goal at first, was to be able to paint Renoir and Black Queen. I painted her because I did not see any Black women from back in the day that were not painted as either mammies or,
Hmm.
something of the sort. I wanted someone to be like just demure, put together, just really um, simple but very beautiful. I wanted her to be in like this beautiful gown. And so that's what I started working on. And it was like one of my first paintings that I was super duper proud of. I'm proud of the apple too, but it was a
Uh-huh.
lot simpler. And it was one of those things that I was like, I could do this. So I started painting just other things with oils and just showing people. And they were like, you can paint? And I was like, oh, I can.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That's
and so it was very
fantastic.
special.
So you're like self-taught.
Yes, yes, I am self-taught,
Awesome.
definitely.
For those of you that are on on YouTube and such, she does have a couple of pictures in the background. Laurisha, while we're talking about your paintings, before we go too far with this, where can people find those online and check them out?
Sure, at the Heel Feel on Instagram is a great place to reach out to me. You'll be able to not only see my paintings, but you'll be able to hear the poetry that goes with it. That's something that is really special about my artistry. It comes with poetry as well. So that's the cool thing. So you'll be able to hear it, talk about it, look at it, all of that. So,
And once again, that is the Heal Feel, and healing,
yes,
healing like as in feeling better, the Heal Feel, and that is on Instagram.
yes.
Moving to the poetry, how did you make the connection between paintings, pictures, and poetry? Or was that something is that an art form that I'm not aware of that a lot of people do?
Um, no, it was something that's still confusing for a lot of people. And what I like about it is so often people look for descriptions of what inspired you to create this. And so if I have words for it, I'm happy to, share those words. And honestly, poetry comes very natural to me. It's something that I didn't know until I did the Twitter Spaces, because when I actually opened it, I didn't have any poetry. I was creating it
Mm.
on the spot. My goal was to open a space that people could have fun and maybe create with me, but I ended up being one of the only ones comfortable enough
Hmm.
to do it on the fly, which was fine. The other people who could were normally rappers, which I found really interesting, about
Hmm.
how the brain works. But I found that if people just let go, that they could create a lot easier. But yes, I like to combine different forms of artistry. Like even my paintings, some of them will have different things in them. Um, because why be boxed in? Why box yourself in if you can really just use different mediums
Hmm.
um, and combine and kind of have your own little art festival in a way? So that's how I think about art and poetry and combining those things. I even sometimes combine it with NFT so that way someone can have like the NFT essentially as an authenticity ticket so that they have it digitally and physically. So, yeah.
Okay. I want you to briefly describe two things. First of all, you again mentioned the Twitter space. Now you have one on Wednesdays, correct?
I do. I do
Yeah.
have it on Wednesdays sometimes. I don't have it all the time
Sure.
anymore because, yeah.
And you're the Lovely Lions on Twitter.
Yes,
Okay.
at the lovely underscore lions. Yes.
Okay. So, in other words, for those listening, if you hop on Twitter and you check out her screen name and you follow her, I'm sure she tweets out lots of really great stuff. And then when she does a Twitter space, you can listen in. And that's kind of where the poetry, I guess, I'm guessing the live poetry. You mentioned the rapping. I'm guessing this is very similar. Like when you said you made it up on the spot, it's almost like freestyling. Is that correct?
Not as much of freestyling. I still am one for picking up a notepad, right? And
Okay.
some of the people can honestly do it from off the top of their heads. I think that that's amazing. I'm
It
not
is.
quite there.
It is.
But I do, I can look at something and just envision what should be said at the moment, kind of put it together in a few minutes and then put it out there. Like a lot of my poetry is like that. It's something I was thinking about or pondering. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, like the poem I'm going to share today a little bit
Okay. I
later.
was going to ask you, while we're on the subject, do you want to share a poem?
Oh, yes,
Okay,
yes.
go right ahead. And then I'm going to have you briefly, when you're done, I'm going to have you briefly describe what an NFT is.
Of course, of
Okay.
course. All right, so this is Eye of the Beholder.
Okay.
Mirror, mirror on their wall, what do you see of me? Why do I look better here? Mine is a funhouse mirror. In my glass, I look super weird. In yours, I look rosy, peachy, pristine, passionate, vivacious, clean. Why aren't I good enough in my own? Do I need a new view? Am I wrong? Should I break my glass and pretend that grass is greener and cleaner in your home? Or is my sight just doomed? Will I ever see me in full bloom? Am I bound to only blossom in your eyes? No reflection like I hate the light? Am I that great really? Am I worth the fight with my eyes? I'll go grab a magnifying glass. Because in my mirror, I'm so small. When did I get this tall anyway? Your mirror shows me all. Every curve, every step. I see grace, I see class. I vote yay to replace my view. Not for yours exactly, but to make mine new. My glass works too. It was me who didn't. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask you a question. A lot of times I've noticed when it comes to creatives, and it depends on the type of creative, but generally people who write meaningful songs, let's say poetry is often very much tied into that in the lyrics, painters, these types of creatives generally have a humanity that you can sense. And I certainly get that from you. Is that been your experience with most creatives, that they generally have a humanity that is kind of palatable? You can taste it, you can feel it.
Yes, I think so. Like, as I have met more creatives who are making poetry and really just opening their hearts to show others, I think you have to sort of be ready to bear all in a way,
Hmm.
because essentially you're allowing someone to tap into your thoughts. You're allowing them to
Mm,
see something from your view. And in the world that we live in, sometimes that gets tough, right? To
yeah,
share different conversations about how we actually feel about something. So, yes, I do get that sense of humanity and being vulnerable from different folks who are engaging in making poetry and art.
sure, sure. We're going to kind of shift gears just a little bit, moving on to the business side of you. I mentioned NFTs, which stands for non-fungible token. In practical terms, I know people hear that an awful lot if you've spent any time online. What exactly is it in a practical term?
In practical terms, non fungible token, meaning a token that can't be repeated, um, it has its own address. So, the way I like to refer to it, I like to give a quick example. A lot of people will understand this if you understand what a track home is. That means, like, a home, all the homes in the neighborhood look alike, right?
Hmm.
But your neighbor cannot go into your house saying they're all alike, right? Because
Hmm.
I have my own address, they have their own address. Nothing about that is quote unquote repeatable, even if the houses look the same. So if you do a token and you do several of them, that's how everyone knows who owns what. That particular address is non repeatable, meaning that's yours for as long as you hold that deed. And it's very much the same on a blockchain. So the blockchain is like the neighborhood,
Hmm.
right? Because that's that particular chain and how you know what it is and where it is. And each house is its own little NFT and has a passable deed with it. And that deed, as you pass it, of course, or sell it, right? You can sell it to other people. And that's
Mm.
kind of an easy way for people to understand what's going on with NFTs, I believe.
Okay. Yes, that's very helpful. How does it relate to digital currency? What are the differences there?
Digital currency, I think people can understand because they go in exchange between different currencies if they're going to a different country. But also, one of the ways that I can get people to understand fiat versus a token. Fiat is the money that you are used to. So it can be the dollar for me. Some people, it's the peso or whatever, actual money that has a basis in your country. Digital currency is great because there are so many exchanges and you don't have to essentially leave your home to exchange that money out. A lot of people understand it by what's going on with a credit card. For instance, that's still a digital form of currency. You're not holding however much is in your bank account, but you can use those funds at the immediacy of wanting to use them. The cool thing about digital currency is, let's say they use a different kind of currency where you're trying to buy something, but they all take ETH. Well, ETH transcends where you are. See, normally it's like we only take the dollar here. So if you have a Visa and it takes the dollar, you might have to exchange and pay a rate. And sometimes you have to do that as well with digital currency. But it's also cool to be able to not have to do that if they take ETH or Tezos or any of the other things. So I might be able to buy something in Germany and have it sent to me and not have to exchange anything. That's what's beautiful about it. It really goes past governmental things. Well, I don't want to say past governmental things, but it in some ways has more of a fluency to it, like it fluidity to it.
Yeah.
Like it allows people to make more transactions easily.
One more thing about the internet, and then we'll kind of phase into your work as an entrepreneur and helping other entrepreneurs, because this all kind of goes together now and in these modern times. Web3, and that's another, I'll call it a buzz term you hear a lot about. Web3, it's going to be completely different because you own, I guess, your own spot there on the Web3 formats, and you mentioned a couple, blockchain and some other stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit about what Web3 is? I had trouble getting that out.
Sure. Web3 is essentially, right now we're in Web2. So logging in with your password, that's Web2. Okay. Web3 is connecting your wallet. And in its simplest form, that's the difference with Web3. It's a different way to connect. And people are, of course, opening up ownership. Of course, you can, buy land and things like that. But those are more of the complexities of Web3. But in its simplest form, it's just the next form of the internet. So you're going to have a digital wallet, very simple to get, but also it makes it good for holding on to your digital assets. So think of your wallet as like a folder, but a little more important, like one that maybe is a safety deposit box mixed with a folder. So you don't want to essentially leave that open. And that's why people talk so much about web security, right? Because do I want to leave my safety deposit box just open for anyone to, get all my stuff out of? No.
Yeah.
And in the same way, you want to protect yourself in Web3. But I would just advise people, don't be afraid of Web3. It's kind of like when people said that they weren't going to get into Web 1 and they were like, I'm not going to get into that. And it's like, well, now everyone has cell phones and is on the internet and everything. So just embrace it at your pace.
Yes, it's coming in. It's coming in slowly. A lot of people kind of predicted it was going to come in faster than what it is, but it is. It's something worth following if you're in business. And I always say, no matter what business you're in, even if you're an advocate, if you make your business online, or whether you augment what you're doing, you have a store, you have a traditional website, all of these things, you can't ignore the latest shiny objects. You just can't, because you never know what's going to catch fire. And right now, that's where a lot of things are going. So that kind of leads us into, what you do helping with entrepreneurs. Do you want to talk a little bit about, and I would imagine your business sense and your creativity is a great combination for people who are an entrepreneur, because you can probably give them so many good ideas in terms of what they want to do in their marketplace.
Well, exactly. I help with consultation with Web3, but I also have a course, and that course is not short. It will take about three-hour sessions with questions for people, because it goes into crypto and understanding that, understanding Web3, and then understanding integration if you do want to make either a simple product or an actual whole huge product for your company. And it also helps people to understand how far they would like to integrate. Some people assume that they have to be all in with a roadmap and a Discord, and that's just not true for everyone. One of the things that I sought to disprove when you first came in is that you didn't need a Discord, and you didn't have to essentially go and chill for everyone to know, that you could simply build just like an entrepreneur would, like meaning letting people know that you're out there with stable marketing, being honest and open, and still making sales. And so that's how I started making sales. And also, I love for people to understand that you don't have to work your way up in the system either. You can have your real sales out there, account for taxes, account for everything that you're going to essentially have to pay to even make art or make whatever you're going to make, because it doesn't have to be art. I've told teachers that you can do lesson plans and help people who are in homeschool, right? Because they need some extra things, maybe to enrich their student with. Well, why not put that online and then let it be something that helps to enrich you too? So there's all kinds of amazing things that you can do in NFTs. And so I help people to understand those things so that they can go out there and expand even more.
Yeah.
So that's my goal.
Two things here real quick. First question would be, digital currency has its critics. Okay. I heard it described recently on one of the programs. There was a financial expert on, and he basically called it a digital Ponzi scheme. When you hear things like that, what is your gut feeling about the future? And Bitcoin has had its problems recently. What is your feeling about the stability of it moving forward?
My feelings about the stability of it moving forward is there are still people who think that stocks are a scheme overall, and that real estate, when I was in real estate, there were people saying you can't make money off of that. Meanwhile, I saw people making 5, 10, 20, sometimes more $1,000 at a time. You will always have your critics no matter what you go into. The biggest thing is what works for you. So if becoming full Web3 doesn't work for your business, maybe just consider doing your receipts that way. That way people can always reference them on the blockchain. Or if you have something digital that you are doing, let's say you have a handout, and that handout is something that you just give out to people. Consider maybe putting it online too. Maybe someone in a different place could use that same information, and it would be no hurt to you. But as far as thinking of the actual currency, know that you have flexibility as well. You don't have to leave something in the digital forms of currency. If you start off in Ethereum, you can switch to fiat, meaning your local currency. And that's the beauty of it as well. You can put it on a card and move it over. You can put it in your account and move it over. Just keep the taxes in mind, because some places have different things that they have put in place if it's not an official currency where you are. So keep that in mind. I know here it's if you make more than $20,000, but they're always changing things. So just be aware of what that is in your area before you just start switching everything over. But just know you have so much freedom in making money here and then putting it over into currency that you understand and use all the time.
Sure. The next question I would ask you is, in terms of people who are out there, let's say 20, 30, 40 years ago, they had to rely on the right break. They had to rely on getting the right job. They had to rely on having the right credentials. And, there was a lot that had to go your way for things to happen for you to be successful, what have you. Has the new digital marketplaces kind of opened the field to where more people have access to opportunity?
Oh, I love that question. Yes, the digital market has opened that, and also even Web2 currently has opened that because a lot of positions are remote. So people are finding different things and different avenues that kind of fit for them. And I love that because even what was, as far as people getting into work and you work this amount of years and then you can retire here, a lot of that stuff is kind of gone,
Hmm.
actually. Yes, you might have a 401k, but if you look at the rate of inflation and how things are all crazy. I know it's crazy here in the Charlotte area. Things are
Yeah.
going up by $300, $400, $500 a year for rent, where it used to be maybe $100. You can't depend on the old to essentially advance. So people are using these other avenues, and Web3 included in that, to essentially surpass the boundaries of where they are. For instance, there was one artist where she stayed, no one would buy her art. They didn't want to support women where she
Mm.
stayed. But online, all these different individuals are buying her art.
Hmm.
And so she went from not being able to eat to being able to make a good living for herself.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks don't consider that when they start calling things schemes, and there are schemes out there, okay?
Yeah.
Don't ignore them. Usually, if people are calling something an organization in Web3 and they just started from there and they started giving all these promises, the
Yeah.
same way that you wouldn't take those in Web2, don't look to take them in Web3.
Yeah.
And hone in on the person. If they can't tell you anything about themselves and they're very closed off and they're not willing to at least share something and be more transparent, we've kind of learned at this point that maybe that's not where you want to put your finances, right?
Yeah.
So be aware of that as you're engaging in Web3. But besides that, use it for the opportunity that it is. And, it's kind of like folks say, eat the meat, spit out the bone, and have a good time. Have a good time. Because there's so much to learn about other people. It's
Yeah.
so culturally opening.
Yes, and that's another thing too. I've noticed too that those boundaries online seem to be less important. It's an appreciation of the artist. It's an appreciation of the person. Not that the other those problems go away, because they don't. But I just do think that the play field is much more open now. And as far as entrepreneurship goes, that's something that, this is my opinion, and you can agree with me or disagree with me, but I think that entrepreneurship by and large is not encouraged by traditional institutions. Like him or not, Elon Musk made a real good comment that I picked up on here recently. He said, if you're 18 years old and you walk into a bank and ask for a $10,000 loan to start your own business, the chances are practically zero that you will get it. However, they will give you $100,000 to go to school to learn how to work for somebody else and spend who knows how many years paying it back. Right.
Yes.
So yes. So I for those of you, and I'll say this too. If you want to dip your toe in the water, it doesn't mean you have to quit your job. It doesn't mean you have to do quit all the traditional things that you're doing. I do both. I work for someone else and I work for myself. And it's a great way to not only make some extra money, but I find it very, I'll let you comment on this, intellectually stimulating. You have a different purpose. I'm at the age where a lot of people are thinking about retirement in 10 or 15 years, but there's a lot of people my age who are just being reborn. Getting back to this age of no boundaries, whether it's cultural or what have you, age isn't the barrier that it once was. Do you want to maybe close us out with with anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, I do think that it's important for people to, like you were saying, get involved and discover who you are. And like you were saying, entrepreneurship is not necessarily for everyone,
Right.
because sometimes people get very shaken by there's no check in the mail, right?
Yeah,
But you can
exactly.
make a check in the mail for yourself.
Mm,
It's all in how you engage in entrepreneurship. If you need for something to be, you know, I don't pay it a month ahead or something like that. I need it to be this much. You can make that for yourself. And also believe in what you are doing.
hmm
Like I said, if you have a talent, let's say you're a great cook and you're like, man, I don't have anything else. Well, maybe turn on a camera and a ring light and show people you're cooking. You'd be surprised how many people do not know how to do what you're doing, how you do it.
hmm
And if you can get past that, and just remember that there is only one you,
hmm
then you already have a brand because you're you.
Yeah.
So I say whether you are 25 or 75, it is not too late to start. Please, begin somewhere. Please, if you need to, consult someone if you don't feel sure, because that's what a lot of
Sure.
consulting is about. It's not necessarily saying that you don't have the ideas. Most times people do. But
hmm
knowing how to organize those ideas, that's what consultants help you with. And to build that confidence and to encourage you to get started, I say get started, get in there and create something because it's like one of my poems that I've written about, like, what are you getting old for? Is it just to, get old and not pass anything along and have accomplished what's in someone else's dreams? And what are you actually leaving behind in that situation versus you've actually accomplished something?
hmm
And keep in mind that thing doesn't have to be permanent.
hmm
You can have pivots. Pivots are natural in business. Failures are natural in business, honestly. And it's one of the ways that you know that you're an entrepreneur and in business if you have to pivot and move and do different things at different times. It doesn't mean that you failed at life. It's a great thing that you know how to actually move over to something new. So
hmm
don't feel like that you've, come up short if that happens. But yes, that's my encouragement to someone else. Please get started. Please do. And don't worry. I mean, we've gone through a lot in a few years
Yes.
and we're still here. So
Yes.
there's no sense in worrying and not doing.
Yes. And I kind of feel that it's our human nature to not like change. We kind of like what is familiar, but in a lot of ways, change and adapting is where the true survivors stay. It's just like that old cliche that it's not survival of the fittest. That's a misnomer. It's the species that's most capable to adapt to change. And anymore these days, you have to be a chameleon every couple of years. It's like you were saying about the changing things of. Now I'm from Ohio, and Ohio is we have. I'm going to say we're probably about the seventh largest economy in the United States. Naturally, California, Texas, New York, Florida, and a few others are bigger than us. But we also have a very diversified economy. We have energy here. We have technology here. Intel is here. They made a big investment in Ohio recently. Yes, we have agriculture here. We get made fun of because of the corn. um, but the area that I'm in was known for steel and rubber for many, many, many years. This is back in the 70s and 80s. And it used to be you got out of college or you got out of school and maybe you went to college, maybe you didn't, but you got a job and you worked at Republic Steel or you worked at the Hoover Company for 20, 25 years, and then you retired. And that type of existence really doesn't exist on a large level anymore. I mean, it's still out there. But because of the fact that the economy is so dynamic now, it's changing all the time. You really have to be not afraid of change and just accept the fact that this is something that is going to be ongoing. So I really like your message. I mean, you have so many facets about you. You're a creative. Like I said, you have a certain humanity that comes across you when you speak. You know a lot about what's going on, with far more than I do, about Web3 and all of these other things. To remind everyone, you can be found on Twitter, and that's at the Lovely Lions. Where again is the underscore?
At the lovely underscore lions.
Okay, I don't have that here, but that's what it is, at the Lovely underscore Lions. And then on Instagram, you are at the Heal Feel, and that's heal as in, like I said, feeling better. The Heal Feel. And so many places to find your art, your poetry, your spaces. And it's just, like I said, it's been a joy talking to you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's truly been a pleasure, and I've very much enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. We have been speaking to Laurisha Fant. And again, want to thank her for being on. I also want to thank the audience for listening to the podcast. Just a little reminder, you can find the Billy D's podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. And you can find me on Twitter, real easy to find, at Billy D's. And I'm Billy D's pretty much on all social media. So anytime you want to search me up on a given platform, if I'm on there as Billy D's. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast today. And we will talk to you again next week. I'm Billy Dees and host of the self-titled podcast, The Billy Dees Podcast. We are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast featuring authors and creators talking about their craft, advocates for community issues, and myself and an array of co-hosts discussing current events. There's no partisan ranting and raving going on here, just great content. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast on your favorite platform and on Twitter at Billy Dees. Thank you, and I hope you listen in.